There are paths that combine the two, very, particularly to Tibetan Buddhism, um, and Kashmir Shaivism as well. The tantric paths tend to combine both of them, but but you know, they can be, depending on the path and depending on the person, they're usually only thought of as one or the other, and usually people think in terms of really they're both. I mean, this is Ramana Maharshi when he was asked about this. He said, really, it really comes down to approach, because they end up being at the pinnacle the same thing, but it depends on where you're going and what you're moving toward, how you get there. Um, but often the tantric paths are more associated with the transmission and the goddess aspect of it, or the energy aspect of it, because they don't really approach what Advaita approaches right away until the end. So Dzogchen, which is the highest teaching of Tibetan Tantra according to the Nyingmapa, or Mahamudra, formless Mahamudra, which is the highest teaching according to the other Buddhist schools. That's not approached until the end, until you've had um, this devotional connecting come to fruition. Then they show you Dzogchen. Then they point to that which is beyond all of the forms, beyond all of the devotion, beyond all of the deities, or beyond the Adi Buddha, which is like, the Adi Buddha was Samantabhadra or Vajradhara, and those are like Shiva or Shakti or like God. They're the highest. They wouldn't like to be called, so it's like God, but they would understand. It's the highest Buddha, the Buddha who is basically the Buddha whose body is the universe. So however you get there, both of those, they don't have to be put in opposition to each other at all. So if you feel like, oh, I really need to in this moment simply rest as being, or turn attention away from energy, the sense of yourself as a body, any of those things, and turn your attention simply to the awareness of all of this, then all of this over time will relax into the homogeneous field of all. But that's not the point, right? You're bringing attention to that which doesn't change and recognizing it's the subject of subjects, such that it's you already. Again, language doesn't quite do it, but always was you, always is you. And just rest there. The thing is this, as long as we, meaning the body and the mind, the thoughts, have are attached to a particular way of being, then you will not, there will be always some aspect of you that is not released. So attention will not altogether rest in what Ramana called the heart, or what we're calling the subject of subjects. Now, Papaji used to say this. He said, well, it's absolutely free, but you have to have no desires and give up every sense of yourself. Oh, thanks. It's like, he pointed you to it, you saw it, and then he said, yeah, if you and that's what you are, but any desire will, then it's not done. So in that tradition, often what it is to bring attention there over and over again, aware of this, so that the desire burns out, right? And there may be some historic reason why these teachings are the way they are, quite honestly, because it seems as though the monastic traditions are associated with the tradition of letting go and not having and being free of desire first, right? First. So that's actually way important. So Ramana Maharshi lived in a cave, didn't have any possessions. Lord Buddha begged for his food, he gave up everything. So a lot of these ascetic mystics or people who lived without, um, then all there was to look at consciousness. The tantric approach, which is you don't need to give up any desires, you don't need to give up your sense of yourself, you don't let go of any of that, you enter into with all of that. The more and more you go that way, the more and more you find that what's stopping you is clinging to an idea of what you are. I mean, you can have things, but if you think you have them, you're not going to quite be free. It's always going to gum up the works. So either way, surrender is just the price of admission. Um, and that will happen in its own time. So if you bring your attention to just rest and being, it just will burn it out. If you bring your attention into the energies of connectedness, well, when you're totally relaxed into the energies of connectedness, it's very hard to hold on to a notion of what you are. So if you look at the tantric imagery in Tibet and even everything that we know about the tantric imagery in Kashmir Shaivism and Hindu Tantra, it's horrific madness. I mean, you know this. Look at Kali. Look at all, there's a lot of beautiful imagery, and there's a lot of just strange, insane imagery. Why? Because there's no holding on there. If you want to surrender to the goddess, if you want to fully be embodied with all of the energy of being, there's a cost there. See, like some people think, okay, well, if I become tantric, then I don't have to give anything up. Yeah, that's not the price of admission, but what happens is you become infused with more and more of a sense of presence, and it isn't easy to hold it together if you're holding on to a sense of yourself that is small. You'll get tortured out of it. You'll get burnt out of it. The more you feel, the more connected you feel to others, the more you connected you feel to the universe, the more your sense of yourself as an individual is going to be transformed. It's going to change. Compassion is going to be the only thing that seems to be. And look, it's not a matter of like once you get on this path, then you're, oh, I'll just decide, I'll give up. There's so much what is called vasanas in Advaita Vedanta, and I think also in Kashmir Shaivism. Vasanas is in Buddhism as well, which is habitual tendencies that are kind of not simply things you can go, oh, I'll just change that. Friend and colleague, teacher, Samuel Bonder, his words for this is very, I like it, appropriate translation for governing for vasanas or habitual tendencies. He called them governing sentimentalities. It seems to be a little bit, sentimentality seems like a little bit of a little hand slap, but it is kind of true. I mean, it's true. It's like something that you don't want to give up to because it just feels right, feels good. We're kind of sentimental even about our withholds, our the ways in which we know at some level it's not, I'm not free there, but this is all I know how to be. It's this stuff has to unravel when it can unravel. And In some ways, the tantric approach has always been considered the more dangerous because of this. Because when the influx of the energy is there, um, we are kind of forced or compelled or um, mm, forced is a little too could, but it can feel that way. We end up feeling more because we want to feel more, but then we feel more. Yikes! So it's fine if you just take drip, you know, drink little by little. That's why there's always like tons of um Surgeon General warnings on the labels of tantra. It's like always have a teacher, be careful, don't do this, don't try this at home by yourself. It's like it's because it's an opening, whereas Advaita and the paths of renunciation are fairly safe. They can be sterile, they can be, like, well, you're not really in your body and all of that. But you know what? We start off not being in our body. We're none of us here. Well, I don't know, present. Maybe all of you are. I'm not fully in my body. Why? Because I'm not ready yet. This body, this soul, as much as I'd like to be, is not ready yet. It takes a lot. There has to be the vessel has to be ready for that much um, freedom. How that translates is freedom from desire in the paths of direct realization, like Ramana and Advaita and Zen and all that. It's about a desire. It's described in terms of if you don't have any desire, then you don't care how life goes. You can have nothing, it'd be fine. And you don't even have, and including self-image. You don't have to have a self. You don't. You don't need a self-image because nobody's keeping track because there's no need to keep track of any of it. So you don't have to know who you are. In fact, in that sense, you're no one. It doesn't mean that you can't function and you can't have a conversation and all of that. But it's clear to you that there's no you that's doing that. It's just a moment of flow that's speaking, and that's it. And there's no keeping track. That doesn't have to be given up with tantra. Eventually, that becomes obvious as well, and it starts to fall away. But you never felt like you gave up anything. Where in Advaita, it's like vigorously encouraged to look into that. And that can be considered more difficult, but it's not really more dangerous because it's about seeing it and doing it. I mean, in modern psychology, modern days, people might consider it dangerous because they say, well, you're disassociated, you're not really feeling well. Well, prior to that, we're all disassociated and compartmentalized and not quite feeling right. So it's a kind of, in that sense, it's safer. You're just doing it consciously, right? But because so much of psychology now is about feeling and expressing and all of that, so that looks a little. So you got this, and these things look differently depending on what age you're in. And I mean physically our age, and I mean um, historical ages. You know, what kind of path seemed more or less appropriate. Now nobody thinks it. Back then it was like, oh, and the other thing about tantra is you have to be okay with your sexuality. It's like now it's like, oh, that's all right. I could do that. That's good. No, not a thing. So it's like so tantra, that side of it, nobody's. In fact, you have to tell people, tantra doesn't really mean you're supposed to go have sex with a lot of people. That's not what it means. It just means you're comfortable with your sexuality. It's very different than what people project on it. Anyway, yes, two different paths. So I kind of went on a um, ramble there. Andrew, how is this landing for you? What do you
No,
feel?
it's sitting very well. I was just thinking about your answer and also the way my experience with this